Sweet. All right.
Baby.
Whoa. Good start.
That happened. We're on time, baby.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
We just met, and that's the first time we ever did that.
First time, best time.
Best
That's what I always
time.
say. One of my favorite guitar players that now I can call a friend.
That's right. We're making that's a great thing about this thing. Making
This
friends.
is what I love
week.
about GetCon is all these YouTubers who I've been watching for so long. It's like, isn't it kind of strange? I don't know how many people, you've probably met more of these people than I have, but I just know looking at somebody through the screen for so long and then you meet them, it's like you kind of already feel like you know them a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. For the viewers, it's weird too, I think, because I noticed a comment on a video I put up where, because I did a little intro video the first day I got here, and somebody said, it's like the whole internet is in one place at one time. I
That's
was
a
like,
great way
"That's
to put it, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, it's a big honor for me to be playing and hanging with you, dude.
Oh,
and,
thanks, man.
I want to ask you a few questions, and maybe we'll jam again. And I think the first thing I want to ask you, what would you define yourself as? If somebody says, what do you do?
Well, I'm a professional knucklehead. No, I'm a rock guitar player, for better or for worse. It's like, I remember having a conversation with my dad when I hit a certain,
I love dad stories.
Yeah,
They
so
always end good.
my dad's story is this. It's actually
Okay.
pretty good. It's like my dad maybe had a bit of a hard time with my career choice.
Okay.
And at some point, I kind of had to sit down with him and say, Dad, for better or for worse, here I am, an adult, and you're an adult. And I said, we need to learn how to relate as two grown-ups at this point, because I think he thought I was going to grow up at some point and get a real job. But at that point, I was well into my 30s.
I understand. I was going to ask, what was that, like high school or 30s? So.
Yeah, 30s. We went out for breakfast one day and we sat down and I said, I feel like we need to, like, this is what I do. I'm a rock and roll guitar player.
Yeah. And what was your, like, 30-second life at that point? Like, if you had to describe what you were doing at that moment.
I was, I think I would have been, it was 2000, right? So I was probably playing with like Draco Rosa, which was, he's probably playing with Robbie Draco Rosa. Was a big Latin artist. It's the guy that co-produced and co-wrote She Bangs and Livin' La Vida Loca and all the big Ricky Martin hits.
Cool.
So I was touring with him and doing a lot of touring like South America and Spain and stuff like that. And somewhere in the middle of that kind of 3-year stretch of my life of touring.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so
doing the side guy.
So that to continue with your dad's story, what was the conclusion to that conversation?
It was great. It was really important. It actually gets kind of heavy because he passed away a couple of years after that. But we were maybe butting heads a little bit, and then I felt like we actually grew a lot closer at that point.
That's right.
Like where it can go two different ways, those kind of conversations. But I just sort of said, I think he really respected that I came to and said, I just am feeling like you're still treating me in some ways like I'm 18. And this is it, man. Like, this is what I do. I went whole hog into it. For better or for worse, I didn't go to med school. I play rock and roll guitar.
Yeah, man.
And I said, this isn't me tooting my horn or whatever. I had to be confident in this conversation, say to him, I'm good at it. This is it. I'm good at this. And it was a choice I made, but I try as hard as I can. I work hard at it. And, it's not the easiest career, but I love it and I'm good at it.
Well, so I think he would be very proud. I think that confidence is really important too for what you do. You have a unique experience even in a place like this where there's so many talented people in one place. You still have a different experience in that you get to play in front of many, many humans.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I like to put it. It's like there's a crowd and then there's just like masses of humans that you've gotten to experience playing in front of him. And tell me about your kind of experience with Japan, because I know you've toured around with Chris Cornell, which maybe we'll get into some of that, but specifically Japan, because that cultural difference, does that translate to the musical side of the equation as well, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely does. So my first experience with Japan was actually one of the first bands I was in LA. We worked for about 5 years trying to get a record deal in the States and didn't get one. We wrote and demoed like 50 tunes, worked our butts off, but didn't get one. And I was ready to kind of throw in the towel, as were the other band members. But one thing was the singer was half Japanese. And at some point, a friend of his from Japan had said, hey, why don't you translate a few songs into Japanese and I'll work on getting you a deal over in Japan, just in case the American thing doesn't work out. And lo and behold, a year and a half later, that guy calls us and goes, hey, I think Sony wants to sign you guys in Japan. So out of nowhere, all of a sudden, like at one point I thought the band was over and I had nothing going on or whatever. And like next thing I know, like next week I'm on a plane to Japan.
Just projected to the place you were meant to arrive. Or
yeah, I guess so. And it wasn't like, we made the record for Japan. It was a great experience. Everybody made a little bit of cash. That was my first foray into actually professional musician. I quit my day job at that point, and it was like, now I can do this.
That feels good. And
it felt really good, and I learned a lot through the process. But I fell in love with Japan, actually, with the culture and the food and the people, and it's a beautiful culture, and the people are so respectful. And they work so hard, and they're also very passionate about their work, but also whatever their hobbies are. And they're, if they're into, there's amazing rockabilly culture in Japan.
Like, oh, really?
With people dancing, the dress, and the whole thing. There's amazing lowrider culture. You literally see like Chevy Impalas with the hydraulics and the whole deal with dudes that dress like full on,
Wow.
And
what area of Japan?
I spend most of my time in Tokyo. I've been all over the place, but traveled all over through touring. But yeah, so you can go there and you'll see things. You go, get out of it! Like all of a sudden, there's a lowrider rolling down the street doing the bump, and you're like, that's crazy. But they do it, and they do it so whole hog, like 300%, whatever you're into.
Yeah.
So if you're into jazz or if you're into vinyl, like you're a hi-fi person that listens to jazz or classical, whatever. You've got the best stereo, the best tube.
No
amp.
matter what, it's either 100% or 300% zero.
Yeah, just people are very passionate. They're not wishy-washy and kind of like they're not distracted by like 20 million things. They're into what if it's anime or if it's like rock guitar, right? So the guitar.
So that translates to the rehearsals and the performances.
Yeah.
How does that?
That's a great. So into touring with a Japanese artist, it's very different. Their work ethic is serious, and you might go. What's a long rehearsal in the U.S.? Like 5 hours.
5 hours.
We
Yeah.
did 5 6 hours. My
is
ears
like,
are burning.
Yeah, I need to take a 30-minute break in between. I don't know.
Yeah, they might do. Routinely it's probably with the gig that I do, it's more like 8 hours or 9 hours that you're not playing the whole time. There's like a lunch break and
but it's a full work day.
It's a full work day, and 11 hours is not unheard of. It's on a fairly common basis. You might be there for 11 or 12-hour day. But so the other great thing about it, keeping it all positive, is that everybody in the room is in it to win it all the time. So it's like nobody's complaining. So
and yet you're getting this unwritten, unspoken pushing you to be
your
on
best.
Their level.
On their level and to be your
on
best.
your best level.
And so there's this amazing thing that happens when there's no bad vibes and nobody's complaining and everybody's got this really crazy work ethic, like work till you drop. It would be weird to, I'm tired now, I can't do this. It's like, no, man, everybody's
unacceptable.
like, yeah, it's kind of unacceptable, but nobody else is doing it. So you're like, you get sucked up in that energy, and before you know it, you're kind of a part of that.
I'd imagine it takes a certain kind of person also to adapt to that.
Yes.
So has that translated, you spoke about confidence earlier, has that translated to what you do with YouTube as far as, you tour, I would say you're a touring professional guitar player, rock and roll guitar player,
right,
as you put it. How does that life mesh with YouTube?
The YouTube thing for
we're
me.
at GitCon. I'm just like, Pete Thorn, I don't think of Pete Thorn necessarily as a YouTuber, but I did find you on YouTube. And I feel like a lot of people found you on YouTube.
Yeah.
So how do you anticipate YouTube evolving for you? Because it seems like you've been doing a lot more than maybe you ever have before. Is that true? Or
it is, and it's, the wonderful thing about this YouTube thing that's happened is that and I know you've experienced this for sure, it's that it gives you this flexibility and sort of a power and flexibility and ability to do your own thing. And, you're kind of your own boss working out, and there's a million different ways to kind of make it work for you. That's a very powerful thing, because for me, there's a prestige and like a respect that comes with doing the touring gigs and with playing with, on big stages, and I love it. It's awesome. The downside of it is when a tour ends, and they always do, an artist wants to go on a break, they want to do something different musically, maybe try a different, whether it's just they want to replace you or they want to get a whole new band or whatever, those things happen. And then it's like, if your whole career is that you're invested in whatever your gig is or something, and that falls away all of a sudden, it can have it can be hard on your ego and on your, it's like, and it can also just be difficult income-wise. It's like, money can be good, like touring and stuff. Like if you get a good gig, you can make some dough, but you come home and it's never as much as you thought it was going to be. So you've banked some money, you're cool, yeah, I'm good, and then like a month goes by or 2 months go by and you pay your bills and all of a sudden you're out of work, and you're like, shit, and then you're like on to the next gig, and you're hey man, you hear of anything? Oh, we thought you were out of town. And that's the other thing. When you tour, people think you're gone, even when you're not. It's like, oh no, we thought you were cool. They don't call you because you'd be gone for 6 or 8 months or a year, or maybe you've had the same gig for 3 years and all of a sudden it ends.
So that's kind of an affliction that a lot of us wouldn't know about. So it's that's a touring musician, or what would you say, a session musician, or what would you call your role? I heard
Sessions
you say sideman.
Sideman. Sessions is maybe even tougher in some ways, because if you're doing sessions, you're like constantly hustling.
Right.
Like it's like every day, or you might get booked for a week or a month if you're really lucky on a record.
Okay.
But then that ends. The key with being a session musician, I think, is you need to have like at least 4 or 5 producers that know about you and always have projects going on. Because say you work for one producer all the time, but then let's say they get a job producing Green Day. Now they're gone for 6 months producing a band. They don't need you. So you need to have a bunch of other producers that are, working with solo artists and people that are going to need a guitar player to come in for a session, basically. So that's the key with I think, with being a session musician. Have a bunch of different people that are going to hire you for jobs. No different than like, you know, it's really like being a roofer or whatever it is that you do. You need to have, you know, a lot of different people calling and you know, so those different income streams basically. With being doing what I do, it's to get a little bit more job security because generally you'll get a gig, and if it's all working out and everybody's happy with you and stuff, well, you know, it's going to be at least a month of touring, if not like sometimes a year, if not sometimes 3 years. I would say on average my gigs have been anywhere from a year to 3 years of steady work.
That's I would say that's a good ratio.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. If you know, if I know what I'm doing for a year, that's job security as a musician. And a lot of people don't understand that about being a musician. You know, it's like you got to be ready to constantly hustle because you're constantly looking for work and constantly looking for new stuff. You need to feel when it's ending too, like a tour.
Yeah.
Like
anticipate.
Yeah, I think this thing's wrapping up. I better start putting some calls in because you know you do like a touring cycle for an album. If the album wasn't that successful, you can kind of feel it at about the 6-month mark that maybe the you know the touring money's going to dry up and they're going to pull the plug on this thing. Or sometimes it starts getting extended. You're like, well, we've been on the road for 2 years. Like, when's this thing? But it always wraps up.